Dr. Paula Ehrlich, good morning.
Good morning.
We are happy and honored to have you here at Fondazione Capellino. And here at our foundation, we adopted E.O. Wilson's Half-Earth project as a long-term political and cultural goal. For those who are watching, Half-Earth is a conservation initiative proposed by the late biologist E.O. Wilson, which advocates for protecting half of the Earth's land and sea areas to preserve biodiversity and maintain ecological balance. Dr. Ehrlich, you had the privilege of working with Dr. Wilson and have served as president and CEO of the E.O. Wilson Biodiversity Foundation since 2012.
That's right.
We'd love to help share and celebrate Dr. Wilson's work by asking you a few questions. Shall we start?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Why did Dr. Wilson propose the half-Earth idea? What were his reasons, and what potential scientific, cultural, and political impact did he see in the project back then and for the future?
When E.O. Wilson, Ed, began to think about Half-Earth, it was because he imagined that we needed a goal, an ambition that could solve the problem of our rising rate of extinction. He knew, having worked in conservation organizations on their boards, on the boards of conservation organizations around the world, he kind of knew what worked and hadn't worked, and he felt that we were maybe putting out fires here and there, but we weren't really solving the problem of extinction. I think that one of the things that inspired him was a sense that we were able to actually begin to convene around goals, such as the goal to reach 2 degrees C in support of our climate change efforts. And I remember calling me very excited about that as that emerged. We also knew that in order to care for our planet, we needed to do a lot of research to understand it better. We needed to engage young people in order to educate them. And the gift of the book, Half-Earth, was to put that into words, capturing this ambition or goal that we must protect half the Earth in order to safeguard sufficient habitat to care for all of biodiversity. Half-Earth, in some ways, as the book was a simple idea, right? And it was, and it then allowed people to actually engage in and understand immediately what we needed to do. How that's executed in practice, of course, is extraordinarily complex. But the book gave us an ambition, an opportunity to imagine how we could work together towards a moonshot, that together we could bring our unique expertise and understanding from various walks of life and be convened under this vision that if we protected half the Earth, we'd be able to safeguard biodiversity into the future in a more sustainable way.
Sure. And we certainly invite all our watchers to try and read Half-Earth as a way to get acquainted with E.O. Wilson's
Absolutely.
ideas. Dr. Ehrlich, islands, both in their geographic sense, but also as fragments of habitat, and ants as a metaphor for the interconnectedness that sustains ecosystems, were among Dr. Wilson's main research subjects. Could you tell us more about this?
Absolutely. Island biogeography is actually extraordinarily important to helping us understand why we need to protect half the Earth. In the 50s, E.O. Wilson did studies on biogeography that helped us to understand the relationship between the amount of habitat that was needed to sustainably support species and how that area related to the number of species that could be supported. In fact, what we learned through those original island biogeography studies and the research that's happened subsequently is that that area is related to the number of species that we can protect by the 4th root. And so that mathematical relationship allows us to understand if we protect half the Earth, we'll protect at least 85% of species. Now, the key though is really to understand which half. And by mapping the species of our planet, really understanding where they are and what places they need to best support their lives and livelihoods, we can actually protect the other 15% as well. Now, you mentioned ants. And of course, Ed is famous for his work in studying ants. But one of the things I think that comes out of that study that really should inspire and inform us is the way that he chose that one species to passionately understand and know everything he could about that. It's a model in some ways for what he hoped to inspire in others as well. Because for him, it was absolutely key that we understand everything that we can about the species of our planet in order to best care for them. Right now, we probably have only discovered and named about 2 million of the 10 million species out there. And imagine how much more we could do to really care for the species of our planet if we knew all of them and understood how they're connected in the web of life of which we're a part.
Beyond E.O. Wilson Biodiversity Foundation, where and how is Dr. Wilson's legacy being carried forward today?
Oh, I meet people every day whose lives have been inspired and informed by E.O. Wilson. It could have been through one of the over 40 books that he's written. It could have been of the way that they revered his writings through the 2 Pulitzer Prizes that he won. It may be that they heard him speak at an event, or that they were inspired by him to spend time in nature. But the way his words live on through our organization is through the Half Earth Project. And through our foundation, we aim to carry forward his legacy in convening everyone, everywhere, to work together under this vision for our planet and Half Earth, and to engage people everywhere in imagining what that could look like. The Half Earth Project map is one program of the Half Earth Project that allows us to imagine what that could look like. On the Half Earth Project map, we've mapped the species of our planet globally at a 1 kilometer resolution in order to inform what places we should prioritize for protection in order to safeguard the most species. If you go to the Half Earth Project map, you can also see how well we're doing in protecting those species. If you look there, there's a national report card for every country in the world, and they get a score from 0 to 100 depending upon how well they're doing. Most countries, they average a score of about 40. But if you protect more species in places that are truly counting, you can raise your score and do even better. So the Half Earth Project map allows us to see where we have the best opportunity to protect species, how we're doing, what our success is looking like, and where we should go next.
You mentioned the climate change. So, as crucial as it is, the climate crisis gets all the media attention, while the destruction of biodiversity doesn't receive nearly as much. In your view, what's the reason for this?
In some ways, climate change is easier. As we look at the problem, we have a good sense of what we need to do in order to solve the problem. But I believe, and Ed would say this as well, that biodiversity is the next big thing. And in some ways, it should be easier for people to embrace, because it's always easier to embrace the living world than the non-living climate crisis. I remember at the beginning, climate was very confusing to people, right? Yeah. And yet over time, we've begun to understand what has caused the climate crisis. The crisis for biodiversity is even more complex. And so to the extent that we can understand and bring people together around information that helps them understand this web of life, how we're related and part of that, as well as the places around the world where that species depend upon to thrive sustainably into the future, we'll begin to help people understand that. I think also we're just at the cusp now of understanding how to engage companies and countries in information that helps them to understand what their relationship is to biodiversity and what they need to do to best protect it. And that's sort of new, right? It's only now in this day of big data and remote sensing and the opportunity to use that information to help drive decision making that we have the opportunity then to raise up our understanding and our action in order to protect biodiversity.
Right. And what you said made me think about the eco blitzes. Those gatherings where people were called upon to just research all the species present in a given space.
Exactly. We call them bioblitzes.
Bioblitzes, right.
Exactly. And the idea is to go in a concerted effort, usually it's with young people, and identify every species you possibly can in a 24-hour period. And then scientists can help to identify and log, not only monitoring the species we know, but maybe even identifying some species that we don't know yet. And what's exciting about that, especially as you engage young people in that, is that they have the opportunity to imagine. They have that transformative moment where they can imagine that they might be able to make a difference in the world. That they're an explorer out there discovering new things and maybe having their own role in ensuring the future of that species. And so the reason for bioblitzes is sort of twofold. One, to make sure we have the best information we can about the places that we care about and the places that we don't understand yet. But there are also moments of inspiration for young people to be able to feel like they are the next generation stewards of these places, and inevitably that's key to the success of our conservation efforts.
We talked about ants. Let's now talk about the bigger picture. Do you consider that our current economic model or possible alternative ones in the future could one day ever achieve a balance with nature and make the word sustainable truly meaningful when applied to the economy?
Yeah. Well, I'm no expert on economics, but I do have a sense that right now we need to begin to shift our sense of value and who our stakeholders are. Companies traditionally have raised funds in order to support their stakeholders, which are their board members and investors. And I've begun to see some shift, at least among some companies, that allow them to imagine that actually the stakeholder is our planet. And so to the extent that we can advance our lives, livelihoods, our work, and our corporate responsibility towards remembering that inevitably the stakeholder is our planet, I think it begins to shift and allow a change in our thinking that would support that sustainable future. We've just been schooled for such a long time on a value chain or a value system that would suggest that growth, perhaps to the detriment of our environment, is what we should be aspiring to. But I feel a change there. And I think that as we continue to talk about it and focus on it and we begin to truly understand its impact, perhaps we can make some baby steps forward.
Yeah, let's hope so.
The Half Earth Project is also engaging young people through our Educator Ambassador program and providing this sort of information to students in classrooms so they can see why this information is so important to their understanding of the world and what we need to do. We also support Half Earth chairs and scholars in places around the world, allowing them and their expertise to be supported as they have unique insight and understanding into the socioeconomic and conservation needs of their specific place. Through these activities, we come together every year in one big event called Half Earth Day. And at Half Earth Day, we convene people from around the world around various themes, allowing them to participate in helping to imagine what Half Earth could look like. For the past several years, we have held a Half Earth Day here in Italy. And the foundation is also holding its annual Half Earth Day in Chicago in the US this year around the theme of mentorship, wisdom to action, mentorship as a driver of biodiversity conservation. And we are really looking forward to welcoming people there this year to continue the conversation around what we need to do to reimagine how we care for our planet.
Now, a message in the bottle moment. What message would you give to someone who is 10 years old today?
I would tell a 10-year-old, and that's such an important age, right? In fact, in many cases, it's the age where we have both the curiosity and also that spirit of adventure that allows you to go out into nature and imagine that you can make a difference in the world. To be inspired by and have that moment where you realize that in the beauty of nature is also the inspiration to care for it into the future. And so for 10-year-olds, I would just encourage them to get out into nature as much as they possibly can. Find that one thing, maybe that one species. It could be a bug, it could be an elephant, that you uniquely have passion for and learn everything you possibly can about it. Imagine if every 10-year-old went out there and did that. We would have an army of young people who grew up in whatever roles they're in, a doctor or lawyer or business person, to be true stewards and carrying that in their hearts through whatever kind of work that they do.
And raising the target, what message would you give to someone who is 20 years old today?
Well, in some ways, then we can deepen that same message. For a young person in college who's just beginning to research and explore a career in science and learning everything they can about a particular species or the science and technology, the understanding and wisdom of not just the science, but the communities of people around them, and really begin to think about a consilience of that. The aspiration being that we live life in a different way than we study it. We study life in buckets, biology and the humanities. I would challenge young people in university to come bring those ideas together and study them across the deep expertise, but also the unique understanding we can get through a consilience of those ideas. I think that's a real path forward in really reimagining how we care for the planet and truly bringing a new insight and wisdom to it.
Dr. Ehrlich, we thank you for being here with us today, and we really appreciate your time and the thoughts you shared with us.
Absolutely.
And for those who are watching, we hope you enjoyed this conversation and will maybe take a moment to reflect on the thoughts we've shared today.